Hello, this is Blanca, and welcome again to another episode of Your Health is Your Greatest Wealth. I have the pleasure to invite my guest, Trevor Cates, Dr. Trevor Cates, who is a best-selling author of several books, including Clean Skin from Within and Natural Beauty Reset. And Dr. Cates is also the founder of the Spa Doctor. She received her medical degree from the National University of Natural Medicine in 2000 and was the first woman licensed as a naturopathic doctor in the state of California. With that, Dr. Trevor Cates, take it away. Let us know a little bit more about what you're doing these days.
Great. Well, thanks for having me on. This is fantastic. Yeah, so I've been focusing really on helping women for the last 23 years. And as you mentioned, I've written several books and did some interview. I've done a lot of interviews like you do. And I do find that there is a lot of catching up we need to do for women's health because we are in the medical world, we are a bit behind when it comes to women's health because so much of the research, excuse me, so much of science was focused on men and men's health. And so we are playing catch up on women's health and women being included and what not only keeps us free from disease, but also what optimizes our health. So that's really a big focus for me. But really, so much of what I talk about not only helps women, but it also helps men. I just feel especially drawn to helping women because I'm a woman and
As am I.
I also have seen how women have, especially when it comes to hormones, they're just more complex and we need a little bit more attention in certain areas, partly because we're playing catch up in medicine.
Thank you for that. And I am very impressed just having done research on you and just all the different podcasts and shows you've been on. I did meet you many years ago in Park City, Utah. I happen to have a restaurant right across the street from your place of business and also just interacted with you from different networking circuits where you would host events to teach women about their hormones. So thank you for that. And thank you for being a friend. So Dr. Trevor, take us a little bit down this path of how exactly you got into helping make a bigger impact for women and their health and their hormones. And I guess we also must touch about skin.
Yeah, absolutely. So, okay, I'm going to give you the abbreviated version because we all have interesting journeys, right? So, when I was a kid, I was sick often. And I had a lot of allergies to environmental things. And we lived on a farm and it was allergies to a lot of the different plants that were growing around us and various things. And so I had a lot of recurring infections in my throat, my nose. I also had a lot of skin issues. I had a lot of eczema. I would get hives, lots of mysterious rashes and bumps. And so my parents took me to see a lot of different doctors and they would put me on different medications, but with every medication I was put on, I would either have an adverse reaction or an allergic reaction to everything. And then I would feel worse from like the side effects in addition to what the symptoms I was already having. And I also felt like I wasn't a normal kid. So I was bullied at school. I felt uncomfortable in my own skin. And so thankfully, my parents didn't give up searching for answers for me. And they eventually found a holistic practitioner that they took me to. And this is when I was 11 years old. And I remember it really well because when I saw this practitioner, and my health started really turning around and I started to have relief from the symptoms I was feeling. I started to feel more like a normal kid. I remember really distinctly thinking, why didn't all these other doctors mention this holistic approach? And, as a child, it's like just a very pure, innocent kind of a thought. Now I understand a bit more about conventional medicine and different approaches to medicine and why that wasn't fully embraced and presented to my family at that time. But it is an interesting question, right? Like, why can't we all be given that opportunity? And I think now I'm 50 years old. So this is like 40 years ago. So I think now holistic medicine and naturopathic medicine, holistic medicine, it is being more accepted and more embraced by a lot of people. But I still think there is a bit of a divide, and that we have to choose one or the other. But as a naturopathic physician, I feel like there's a great way to integrate them and to do both and to really honor our bodies and trust them more. And I think women have this great intuition. We have that because it's just innate in us, because whether or not we have children, we are designed to be able to have children, and that impacts our hormones, the way our bodies, our brains. And so we have this incredible intuition, this sort of gut instinct of something's not right. And I think we really need to pay attention to that rather than just see symptoms as something that needs to be suppressed, or that we just need to get rid of it as fast as possible. Usually symptoms are signs that something's out of balance in the body. So if we're feeling moody, if we're having skin issues, if we're having recurring infections, if our skin is itchy, it's usually a sign that something that we're doing with our lifestyle or is not quite right, or there's some sort of underlying cause that's triggering these symptoms. So that's really what my approach is about. And so going back to my history, it did sort of plant the seed in my mind when I was 11 years old of, this question of like, why? And so fast forward, when I found out about naturopathic medical school, when I was in college, I thought, wow, this really aligns with what I've always believed or what I learned myself. And so that's what led me on the path to become a naturopathic physician. And as I said, I've been doing that for 23 years. And I just really love seeing how when we address the root causes, that's what really naturopathic medicine is about, is addressing the root causes and understanding that our bodies are innately wise. And that when we can restore balance, when we can provide the support our body needs at addressing these root causes, that so often things can really settle out, and we can address symptoms, we can prevent and address many diseases. And again, I'm not saying that there's not a place for conventional medicine. There are times when I think medications are necessary, or they could be used as part of an integrative practice. There are certain times we need surgery and we need to go to the emergency room. So it's finding that balance and really understanding how can we not only prevent disease and address disease, but live this optimal life. Because I know many of us, most of us, I like to think, want to have this longevity. We want to live longer, but we don't want to just live longer. We want that quality of life. Because who wants to live longer if you're not enjoying it, right?
Wow. So you touched on so many things I am equally passionate about. First of all, I want to commend you. I think these days we are seeing more people taking their health into their own hands and just really being empowered and questioning what is traditionally told to look for alternatives that may serve them better. And as you said, I think there is a time and a place for everything, but just the fact that we can now explore options to take more responsibility of our own health is one of my passions, which is why I started this platform, just to talk more about exactly what you're doing, naturopathic medicine. And I too am of the mindset that, as much as we're trying to increase longevity, because all of us are working towards things to extend our life, you also want a quality of life. I'm in complete alignment with you. You said a couple of other things that I would love to ask you about. And again, it goes back to women and health. And thank you so much for closing that gap, because it's been definitely necessary. And it's great that it's a woman serving women. So I was reading some of your writings as well as watching some of your interviews, and you talked about so many things that are out in the news right now, in the media, even if maybe not mainstream media. And you talked about the role of hormones, including the microbiome. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. And hormones are these chemical messengers in our body, and in our bodies, and they play a really important role for both men and women. And we have the same hormones. Men and women have the same hormones. We just have them in different amounts. And so, and for women, we go through different stages in our lives, as well as even through when with menstruating women throughout the month, where we have these big fluctuations in our hormones. So I love hormones. I love talking about hormones. They're so fascinating. And I know that a lot of people are like terrified about hormones because they get this feeling like hormones are working against us and our hormones are our biggest problem. I'm like, no, when our hormones are working for us, they're amazing. And there are things we can do to help rebalance them. And so, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, these are sex hormones that we have. And again, women have different levels of them versus men, and that we have these changes throughout our lives. And so it can create those fluctuations and changes, surges and imbalances and comparison to one another can create symptoms. So there are things that we can do with our lifestyle, and also there are certain herbs and nutrients and even medications that can actually help with balancing or making problems. Some things can actually create more imbalances. So we have to find that magic sweet spot for, it's like, I consider hormones like it's like a symphony, like music, like a beautiful symphony. When it's out of balance, it just doesn't sound, music doesn't sound very good when it's out of tune. But when our hormones are in that harmonious state, it's like this beautiful symphony, right? It's working for us. And so we just need to find the right tools for us to help with that. And so that's what's really important with hormones, and we can go into more detail about that. But one of the things that I think that people don't realize is connected, and you brought this up, connected with hormones, is our gut health. And so people think, oh, well, hormones are just, coming from like my ovaries or, my adrenal glands or my thyroid. But there's so much connection with our gut, and our gut, and also our brain health is connected to our gut. And so like, for example, the hormone serotonin, which is also considered a neurotransmitter that helps us feel good, like just it's like a feel good neurotransmitter hormone. It's actually, most of it's made in the gut. So people mostly think of neurotransmitters and hormones not occurring in the gut, but like the brain and other places. But serotonin is mostly in the gut. And so that's just an example. But when our gut health is working well and we have a healthy gut microbiome,
Mhm.
that actually impacts our brain, our skin, our hormones, and so much of our bodies. So that's another place where we oftentimes don't spend enough attention. And oftentimes it's when they're already out of balance, then that we have to figure out how to get back in balance. But I'm glad you brought that up, that really important connection between the microbiome, all these microorganisms that live in our gut, but also our microbiome is throughout our bodies. There's a big focus on our gut, but our skin is our largest organ. And we
Thank
have,
you. I
yeah,
was going to ask you about that. Take it away.
yeah, skin is our largest organ. I like to call it our magic mirror because it's this outer reflection of everything going on in our bodies. And it also has these microorganisms that live on and protect. And if it gets out of balance, we get acne breakouts, eczema, rosacea, premature aging, even like changes with the sensitivity of our skin is all related to the microbiome. And that in particular is the skin microbiome. But the gut microbiome is connected to the skin microbiome.
And Dr. Trevor, I was fascinated when I was watching some of your videos of how deep you delve into the skin, which I think as women, we all do. I know for me, good skin hygiene has been part of my lifestyle ever since I was young. Because I saw older women with really bad skin, and it scared me into taking good care of my skin. And over the last several decades, I've been more focused on my skin than on cosmetics, the makeup. And we don't think of skin as a large organ. And just watching your videos, I was a little educated about even what you put on your skin matters. So, can you dive a little deeper into that?
Yeah, absolutely. I created a natural skincare line. I founded the Spa Doctor. Did sell that company about 9 months ago. And I'm still involved, actively involved in helping with the product development and education around the products. But the reason why I'm so passionate in getting that started is because I was talking to my patients. So it was about 10 years ago, I was talking to my patients a lot about what we put on our skin. And I was educating them about how it doesn't just sit on the surface, it actually can get absorbed into the body. And so my patients were like, well, what can I use instead? And they didn't like my patients at the time, they didn't like the products that were available, the natural products that were available. So I did some research and I found a way to make products not only clean but also effective. So that's why I created the Spa Doctor line of products and launched that, and why it's done so well. So I'm so happy to see
Great.
that. But going back to what you asked about, I think a lot of times we do things out of habit. We just don't really think about what it's doing to our body. So we're so used to, as women, we've gotten to this place in our lives and where we just put products on our skin. We don't even think about the fact that our skin is very absorptive. So just so people understand, hormone creams, nicotine patches, those are medications that are applied to the skin because we know it's a route of absorption. Well, we can actually, instead of just taking things internally, it's another way we can take in medications. Well, if you think about that, then whatever you're putting on your skin can get into your circulation. And unfortunately, there are not many regulations in the cosmetic, the skincare, personal care product industry in the United States. So there have only been 11 ingredients banned in the United States. I actually made the Spa Doctor products initially in England because they've banned over 1,000 ingredients in personal
Wow.
care products. And so the EU standards are so much stricter than US standards. And so it's really up to us as individuals, as consumers, to be educated and to understand, because having my experience in manufacturing and all the different manufacturers I work with and knowing the industry, I know that most companies really just don't care. It's more about making money and how can we reduce the cost of the product? How can we have the product have a longer shelf life? How can we have it smell good so customers will use it? Most companies, even ones that call themselves natural, because there is a trend there, they care more about the money than actually the health. So that's why it's really up to us as consumers to do a little bit of homework. So when we apply things to our skin, it is important to note that it can get into our bloodstream. And there's a group of chemicals called endocrine disrupting chemicals, or EDCs. These are hormone disrupting chemicals that are in our environment, not just in personal care products. There are some also found in our food, our water, the air that we breathe. And unfortunately, it's a lot of places around us. So examples of that would be like heavy metals like lead or mercury. Also, things like pesticides in our food, and it might be in our water, plastics, plasticizing agents. And then in skincare products, there are also things like phthalates that are plasticizing agents used in fragrance to help the scent last longer, or parabens or oxybenzone, things used in sunscreens. These are known endocrine disrupting chemicals. So what they do is these chemicals, when they get into our bodies, whether we consume them through breathing, through ingesting them, or absorbing them through our skin, what happens is they make their way into our bloodstream. And when our body sees it, they'll actually bind to hormone receptors, because the body's trying to figure out anything that comes in the body. The body's like, what is this? What do I do with it? How do I process it? And is it friend or foe, right? And so they tries to recognize. So it takes this like, okay, so this looks like a hormone. So I'm going to take it here. And so it'll attach to a hormone receptor, and then it will either mimic a hormone. So it thinks that the body is having more hormones. So then it will create a cascade of events like breast development, like turning off things that would cause us to get pregnant, infertility. So thyroid, shutting down the thyroid, or amping it up, or making think that we have more estrogen, which could then lead to breast cancer. So this is the problem with these group of chemicals. And I have heard so many times skincare manufacturers say, oh, well, it's just a small amount. It's just a little bit. It's not enough to create a problem. But the problem is that our bodies become this soup. We get this like all these different places where we're getting these endocrine disrupting chemicals. And there's not much research showing what, or really not any, what happens when all of these things come together. What does the body end up doing? And it's hard to really know what is that tipping point. And everyone is a little bit different because we all get different exposures and we have different genetics. So my feeling is just do whatever you can to reduce your total exposure. There's no way that we're going to completely avoid. I mean, even if you live in a bubble in Alaska, you still have to eat. It's like,
Yeah,
there's just no way that you're going to completely avoid these because they're all around the entire planet.
yeah.
So we can do everything possible. The most important thing is to reduce your exposure. And then I know people will be like, well, then what we can do? But I really want to pause there because reducing exposure is the most important step. So that means trying to choose clean, natural skincare products, personal care products, especially the ones we use every day. The ones that the cleansers, serum, moisturizer, the products you use every day, those are the most important. Those are the ones, look at the labels, throw out the ones that are a problem. And then drinking purified water, like, and using like refillable, this is a stainless steel water bottle, using things like that. So you're reducing plastics in your water, you're drinking filtered water. So you're reducing, like in Park City, there's arsenic and lead because we live in a mining town, a former mining town. And so we want to drink that purified water. Doing what you can to, again, reusable containers, organic fruits and vegetables, things like that help really make a difference in reducing our exposures.
Thank you for that, Dr. Trevor. My mind is blown away by so much that you said, including, thank you for really emphasizing on trying to reduce the exposure. I was feeling it as I was listening to it's like, oh my gosh, this like sense of fear, and I can't eat things and I can't put things on my skin. But I think just anything that you can do, any small step that will become the compound effect of what you do for your health, whether it's what you put on your face, what you put in your body. So thank you for that. This is about empowerment and not fear. So thank you. And
Right. I mean, yeah, it's like anything, we have to find that balance of, I mean, I'm not going to just not live, right? It's the same thing like the sunlight, sunlight, if you get too much sun exposure, it can lead to skin cancer. It can lead to premature aging, but I'm not going to not go out in the sun because it also provides vitamin D, right? We want to
right,
get outside. We want to enjoy life. So I definitely don't want people to have the fear associated with that. But without understanding the true implications of this, it's hard to make a change, right? People don't
right.
really understand if they don't understand why. It also, the other thing that's really important, in addition to just reducing your total exposure as much as you can, is to make sure that your body is just healthy overall. So the more that your digestion is working, meaning you're having regular bowel movements and making sure that your gut is healthy, your liver is functioning well, and that you're not adding extra thing, not, excessively drinking or, burdening your liver, your body's ability to break these things down and eliminate from the body. We really want to make sure we're doing that. The kidneys, making sure you're drinking plenty of that filtered water every day to flush out your kidneys, because this is how some of the ways that our body eliminates perspiration. We sweat out some of this. So making sure that you're exercising, you're getting in a sauna, maybe going somewhere warm for a tropical vacation. Because stress management also helps, because if
Yeah.
your body's overly stressed, then that also impairs your body's ability to detoxify.
So, Dr. Cates, in your book, The Natural Beauty Reset, you do touch on those four factors, which you refer to as the four pillars. Can you walk us through those really briefly so that we get a better idea of what it is you're talking about as a full system to just help improve your health?
Yeah, and I really touch on this in both of my books. My first book, Clean Skin from Within, is more focused on skin. And my second book, Natural Beauty Reset, is more focused on hormones and hormonal balance. And I also include a seasonal approach. So what I find is that it's a lot of times people will focus on one thing but not all the things. So I try and incorporate it all. So and break it down so it's easy to make changes. So food, of course, is a big, important part of how we can balance our hormones and improve our skin and support longevity in the way that we want to optimize our health. And so eating foods that help support the gut microbiome. So lots of high fiber foods are going to be important. For example, getting lots of antioxidants that help protect against free radical damage that speeds up the aging process. And then also foods that help with things like hormone metabolism. There's a group of vegetables called cruciferous vegetables or brassica vegetables like broccoli, cauliflower. Those contain DIM, which helps with estrogen metabolism, for example. So food is a really important thing for us to be doing, really considering on a day-to-day basis. And then, of course, as I talk about natural beauty reset, there are ways that we can adjust it seasonally. So we're getting foods that have the most amount of nutrients in them and that are harmonized with our bodies more because we're eating in season. And then the second thing would be, we talked about skincare, personal care, exposure to toxins, environmental things. We also want to be mindful of that. And then we also want to look at movement and how are we moving our bodies? And because as I mentioned, perspiration is one way that we detoxify, but movement also helps with our mood. And so and when our stress management is taken care of, that actually helps with hormone balance and with skin and with longevity. So movement is another one. And then the fourth one is mindset. And I know we've talked about this too, because when we talk about mood, it's one of the biggest things that can really help us with our mood is having mindset practices. So, is that a gratitude journal? Is it meditation? Is it prayer? Nature is really, truly one of the most amazing tools that we have, and that's free, right? We just
Right.
walk outdoors, get some sunshine, you get vitamin D. It just feels good. So those feel good hormones and neurotransmitters are like bursting at the seams, right? When you feel good from sunshine, fresh air, and walking out in nature. Also, the microorganisms it helps our gut microbiome. So there's so many things in nature that are beneficial. So and again, it's free. Like it's just right there. It's right outside. I'm pointing out my window.
Yeah, thank you for saying so. My go-to favorite way of meditation is running in nature, which to me, running is such a meditative space. So I get all the benefits of the exercise with the sun and the good mood and the mindset. So thank you for promoting that. I also wanted to ask you about your 9-part docu-series called Hormone Health and Harmony. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So with all the years that I've been seeing patients, and after my first book came out, what the biggest question I was asked by women is about their hormones. I think I have hormone imbalances, what's going on with my hormones, and not really understanding it. So because I know there's a lot of information I can share, and I have my book, Natural Beauty Reset, where I go into talking about all the various hormones, some of the most important ones, and how they interact, how we know if they're out of balance. It's also nice to have different perspective, and there's so much we can understand about our hormones. So I interviewed over 50 experts for this documentary series and put it together in a 9-part documentary series. People can find it at hormoneseries.com. You can watch the first episode for free. If you like it, then you can buy the whole series. But it's really truly I found an incredible group of experts, and some of them share many of them share their personal experiences with hormonal imbalances, which led them to become experts in the area. I actually interviewed Suzanne Summers, who recently
Oh,
passed away. I interviewed her for the docuseries. So a lot of great information there.
thank you. And Dr. Trevor, we don't have time today, but I do want to just ask you one question. You and I were recently a mental health and wellness event, and we talked a little about women and hormones and depression. And again, we won't have time today, but can you just give us a little bite-sized piece of information about that and what you are embarking on your personal mission to help women with that?
Yeah, so I know that when, as women, like I said, we go through different phases of our lives, and even throughout the month for menstruating women, where our hormones are changing, and that can impact our mood. And I think a lot of times women don't realize the role of our hormones in our moods, and that I want women to really understand that it is common. Not everyone experiences depression or imbalances in their mood or anxiety, anger, irritability. These are some of the things that can happen when our hormones are out of balance. But to understand that that can be part of what's going on with your mood. And so it's not just a matter of taking an antidepressant, which may help. But if you're not also looking at your hormones, you might be missing that piece of the puzzle. And so I particularly see a lot of women in the perimenopause or around menopause time where there are a lot of fluctuations happening. This can happen even starting in our 30s. I experienced it in my mid 30s. I started to notice changes in my mood, and it was related to my hormones. And then as we go in our 40s and 50s and beyond, it can. And then at some point after we hit menopause, it can start to stabilize a little bit. But during that time, a lot of women feel this like, what is going on? Why do I feel so crazy? And what this can also do is then it makes us feel like we don't fit in, like something's wrong with us. And one of the biggest things I think that is important in our journeys in life as humans is a sense of belonging. And so, if we really learn to trust our bodies and understand that we're not alone and that our struggles are similar to other people, then it can help create a sense of belonging. And so, that's really what I'm working on now. And my kind of my next thing since I sold the Spa Doctor is to really help women get this sense of belonging and feeling at home in our bodies, trusting our bodies, and how we can kind of help balance our hormones, our neurotransmitters, our gut health, all of these things, how it can help us really feel like we belong. And that will help us have better mental health.
Thank you for that. And what I also really appreciate is just this constant messaging we're getting these days that we as women just need to give ourselves a state of grace, be our own best friend, and how we talk to ourselves really matters. We just need to be more loving and have a positive mindset and be less critical of ourselves. Yes, definitely work on personal improvements, but love ourselves through it.
Right.
So, yeah, I have a final question to ask you. So, this is a health and wellness platform. So, I would like to gift our listeners with a piece of advice, a tool, a strategy to help them improve their own health. And you may have already touched on some of them, but I'm asking formally so that we can gift our listeners with a sense of empowerment to take their health into their own hands.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'm happy to also provide a downloadable guide on with some recipes that are like some of my hormone balancing recipes if that's something that appeals to you. So I can send that to you to share with people. So I think the biggest thing is that I know we can get overwhelmed by our health. That there's so much information online, our neighbors, our friends, our family, podcasts, all these different
Right.
things. I think the most important thing is pay attention to what resonates. Like when you hear something and it's like there's something about it that really resonates. It feels good. Like, yeah, I want to start there. Just do one thing. Maybe that today was, let me look at my skincare ingredients. Maybe there's one product I can throw out today and replace it with something cleaner. Maybe I need to just start eating more brassica vegetables. If that's just one thing, or filtering my water. Pick one thing and just start doing it instead of just total overwhelm and then not being able to do anything.
Thank you. I love that. So it's the decision. Make the decision, commit to it, and do it. Thank you so much, Dr. Trevor Cates. I also wanted to direct our viewers towards your books. If they are interested in getting them, where can they find your books?
Yeah. So Clean Skin from Within, Natural Beauty Reset, they're both best-selling books. They're on Amazon. And so, or a lot of places where books are sold, you can find them there, but Amazon, I know they have them there. And Natural Beauty Reset is also in Audible. So if you don't love
Great.
to read, but you like to listen, because,
I love Audible. I listen to Audible when I work out at the gym or when I'm on runs. So thank you for that. Thank you. So any last pressing thoughts that I did not know to ask you?
No, I think we covered a lot. And I just encourage people to realize your body is just so amazing and so wise. And if it doesn't feel that way right now, it's okay. But know that there is a way to get there and there are tools available to you. So just make a start with that. You can also follow me on Instagram at Trevor Cates, Dr. Trevor Cates. And I try and share some inspirational videos and things and tips there as well.
Thank you so much, Dr. Trevor Cates, who I am also very proud to call my friend. I would love to have you back and delve more into these topics. Will you please come back?
Of course.
Okay, great, great. So I will provide our listeners with links to that information. And thank you everyone for being here today. Again, I am Blanca with my guest, Dr. Trevor Cates, here on Your Health is Your Greatest Wealth.